Hello, welcome back to Africa Value Chain. We are still looking into why great products fail and how to build a legacy brand. You buy KFC because you already know what you're going to get. You can drive across town and pass several other restaurants, but still choose KFC because you trust the experience. You know what you're going to get and you expect that experience to be consistent. Now, think about something much simpler, a big pen. There are very many different brands on the market, but if you've used big for years and it works for you, why would you change? You do not because there are no other good pens, it's because you already trust that product. And that is the power of consistency. Consistency creates confidence, and confidence creates reality. Now imagine Big suddenly stopped production for 1 year. No supply, no pens. What would you do? If you genuinely trusted the product, you might even pre order it and wait for it to return. And once it comes back, you would probably go straight back to it. That tells us something very important. A strong product does not have to constantly convince customers to buy it. Its performance becomes the reason customers return. But many companies approach innovation in a completely different way. They add features, they change packaging, they launch new versions, they follow trends, they create different product lines, and then they wonder why customers do not remain loyal. So, today I want us to look at innovation differently because innovation is not simply about making something look new, it's about making something more valuable to the person who depends on it. We are going to look at 5 principles that can help businesses build products and services that customers actually want to keep using. First, focus on the core, not the packaging. Second, ask your customers, do not assume. Third, document everything, successes and failures. Fourth, invest in research and exposure for your team. And the last, be patient to build a legacy. Let's begin with the real problem. One of the biggest mistakes businesses make is confusing innovation with sales expansion. Sales expansion asks, how can we sell more? Innovation asks, how can we create more value for the customer? These are two different questions. Imagine a logistics company that wants to compete with other companies offering faster delivery. And in the search for what to do, they launch a new premium service. It and that company gives their service a new name, creates attractive marketing materials, and charges a higher price. Yes, on paper, it looks innovative. But when customers still experience delays, the company has just created a new offer, but it hasn't necessarily created a better customer outcome because the customer does not really care what you called the service. They care about whether their shipment arrived when you said it would. That is the difference between adding something to a product and actually innovating. Now, think about an agricultural equipment manufacturer. Perhaps the company believes customers want more advanced machines, so it keeps adding features, more digital controls, more functions, more technology. But maybe the farmer's real problem is much simpler. The equipment is difficult to maintain. Spare parts are difficult to find. Local technicians aren't trained to repair it. Or the machine consumes more energy than the farmer can afford. Adding another feature does not solve those problems, and this is where customer centricity becomes important. Customers do not buy your product specification, they buy the outcome. They want the job done. They want reliability. They want convenience. They want lower risk. They want value. This creates what I call the promise reality gap, when your company promises one thing and the customer experiences something else. And the larger that gap becomes, the harder your marketing team has to work, because you will need more advertising, more promotions, more discounts, more persuasion, instead of fixing the underlying problem. So before asking, how can we sell more? Ask yourself, are we actually delivering what we promised? Because if the answer is no, your biggest problem may not be marketing, it may be the product itself. And this takes us to the first principle: focus on the core, not the packaging. I'm not saying packaging does not matter, it does. Branding matters, design matters. A good package can attract attention, a strong brand can differentiate your product, but these things should support the value for the product, they should not repress it. Let's take a simple technology example. A company launches a mobile application with a beautiful interface. The colors are excellent, the animations are smooth, the branding is impressive, and that same company will have spent heavily promoting the application. But whenever users try to complete the most important task and the application crashes, the customer is not going to remember all that. Probably they will remember this application does not work. That is the core problem. The customer is not using the application because they admire the interface. They are using it because they need a job completed. So ask yourself, what is the customer actually paying me for? If you provide logistics, is the customer paying for your website, or are they paying for reliable movement of goods? If you provide financial services, are they paying for your branding, or they are paying for reliable access and management of their money? If you manufacture equipment, are they paying for the appearance, or they are paying for the machine to perform its intended function? If you're a consultant, are they paying for your presentation, or they are paying for a problem to be solved? That's the core. And this matters because resources are limited. We have limited money, limited people, limited time, limited equipment, limited managerial attention. So, where should you invest those resources? You should invest them in what actually creates customer value. Sometimes the change required to improve a product is surprisingly small. It would be a change in formulation, a change in material, a change in the process, a change in quality control, a change in design, or simply a better understanding of how the customer actually uses the product. A relatively small technical improvement can sometimes keep a product relevant for years. So, here is a simple test: remove the packaging, remove the logo, remove the advertising, remove the social media presence. Now, ask yourself, would the customer still want this product? If the answer is yes, you probably have something valuable at the core. If the answer is no, you need to understand why. A product that consistently solves a real problem can build loyalty even without constantly reinventing itself. And that takes us to the second principle: ask your customers, do not assume. One of the most dangerous assumptions in business is, I know what my customer wants. Maybe you do, but maybe you don't. And the only way to know is to ask. There is a well known example from aircraft design that illustrates this very well. The USA Air Force discovered that pilots were having difficulty controlling aircraft. Initially, the problem was associated with pilot performance and training, but eventually, researchers discovered that part of the problem was actually the cockpit design. The cockpit had been designed around measurements representing the average pilot, but there was a problem. There is no single human body that represents everyone. Pilots have different heights, different arm length, different proportions, different preferences. So, designing around an average person can produce a system that does not fit many people properly. The solution eventually moved towards adjustability. Instead of forcing every pilot into exactly the same position, the cockpit was redesigned to be adjusted to a particular individual. And this is a powerful lesson for businesses. Your customer is not an average. Your customer is a person with a specific problem in a specific environment with specific constraints. And that's why you have to talk to them. Do not only look at sales data. Sales numbers can tell you what happened, they do not always tell you why it happened. If sales fall, don't immediately assume it's pricing. Ask. If customers complain, don't immediately defend the product. Ask. If people stop using your product, don't immediately blame the market. Ask. Ask the person, ask the team, ask the operator, ask the salesperson, ask the technician, ask the customer, because they have reasons that you'll never discover simply by looking at the numbers. You can ask very simple questions. What do you actually use this product for? What frustrates you most about it? What do you wish it did better? What alternative do you use when it does not work? What would make you stop buying it? And perhaps the most important question, if you would change one thing, what could it be? Then listen. Really listen. Don't immediately defend your product. Don't explain why the customer is wrong. Do not try to convince them that your current system is actually good. The objective is not to win an argument. The objective is to discover reality, because sometimes the person using the product every day understands the problem better than the people managing the business. And once you start asking those questions, something else becomes important. You have to document what you discover. And that brings us to the third principle: document everything. Document what worked, document what failed, document what almost worked, what caused the failure, what customers said, what changed, and document what happened after the change. Why do you have to document? Because innovation is a learning process and failure can produce variable information. The problem is that many organizations are afraid to document failure. People worry about blame. We have managers who ask, who approved this? Who made the mistake? How much did we spend? And because people are afraid of being blamed, the organization loses the learning. Imagine a company tests 10 different approaches, 9 fail, 1 works. If the company documents the 9 failures, the next team does not have to repeat them. But if those failures disappear from the organization's memory, someone else may repeat exactly the same mistake. Now there the company is paying twice. It paid to discover the problem, and then it paid again to rediscover it. Documentation creates institutional memory. People leave, managers leave, teams change, but knowledge can remain. This is particularly important in manufacturing and industrial environments because experimentation costs money. You consume materials, you consume machine time, you may experience downtime, you may produce rejected output, you may have to repeat a process. These things can look like waste, but there is a difference between waste that produces nothing and experimentation that produces knowledge. The objective is not to celebrate failure, the objective is to learn from failure, and that requires patience. Which brings us to our fourth principle of today: invest in research and exposure for your team. Let's build Africa, not only in policies on paper, not only in meetings, not only in conferences, but in reality. Real industrial transformation requires capability. It requires people who understand technology, people who understand markets, people who understand production, people who understand supply chains, people who understand customers, people who can experiment and people who can solve problems. Research helps us understand problems. Exposure helps us understand possibilities. Now imagine someone who has never seen another manufacturing system. They never visited another market, never interacted with another production environment, never experienced another logistics model, and then we tell that person, design the future. Of course, they can have great ideas, but exposure expands the range of possibilities they can imagine. Sometimes you do not have a solution because you do not yet know what is possible. That is why research and exposure matter. And this is especially important when we talk about Africa. It's a reminder that Africa is not one market. We have different markets, different infrastructure, different regulations, different climates, different customer behaviors, different income levels, different energy realities, and different logistic systems. So, a product that works perfectly in one market may need adaptation in another. That is not necessarily a weakness, it's an opportunity to explore, because businesses that understand local conditions can design products and systems that actually fit those conditions. As an engineer, I understand how much investment goes into establishing a relatively simple production line. You need equipment, buildings, utilities, people, maintenance, raw materials, quality control, energy, working capital, training. Now, imagine putting all of that investment into a production line that produces something customers actually do not want, or something that does not perform as intended. That is a huge financial setback. Though research can actually protect the investment, before you build, understand the problem, before you scale, test the solution, before you enter a new market, understand the market, before you assume, ask. And once you've started that progress, you need one more thing: patience. That brings us to the last principle: be patient to build legacy. Innovation is not always a 2 month project. Sometimes you discover a solution quickly, sometimes you do not. You may test something and it fails, you change it, it almost works. You discover another problem, you invest again, you test again, you correct feedback and modify the design, and you continue. That is part of innovation. But patience does not mean spending endlessly without direction. It means understanding that meaningful innovation requires learning. If your organization is not ready for that journey, be honest. If leadership will not support experimentation, if the budget is completely inflexible, if the time is unrealistic, if people are punished for every failed experiment, then perhaps you're not ready to innovate. Prepare first, build the capability, then begin. Because legacy companies are not necessarily companies that followed every trend. They are companies that understood something much deeper. Who is our customer? What does the customer depend on us for? What problem are we solving? And how do we deliver that solution consistently? That is a foundation of a legacy. Think about the products you remained rare to. Usually, something about them has become predictable. You know what you are going to get, you know what problem they solve, and that is where the trust comes from. And trust reduces the need for constant persuasion. That's what businesses should aim for, not simply to make customers buy once, but to make the customer think, why would I change? This is a powerful position to occupy. And now let's bring all five principles together. Number one, focus on the core, not the packaging. Ask yourself what the customer actually pays you for. Number two, ask your customers, do not assume. Talk to the people who actually experience your product. Number three, document everything. Capture your successes, failure, assumptions, and learning. Number four, invest in research and exposure for your team. Understand the problem and expand your understanding of what is possible. And lastly, be patient, build a legacy. Do not sacrifice long term value simply because everyone wants immediate results. Now, here is where this becomes bigger than product development. Customer centricity is also a supply chain issue. If customers consistently buy your product because it works, demand becomes more predictable. Predictable demands improves forecasting. Better forecasting improves production planning. Production planning influences procurement. Procurement influences inventory. Inventory influences cash flow. So something that starts with a simple question, what does the customer actually need, can eventually influence the entire value chain. And this is why I do not see customer centricity as simply a marketing strategy. It's a business operating principle. It affects product development, it affects operations, it affects supply chains, it affects procurement, it affects production, and it affects forecasting. And ultimately, it affects the sustainability of the business. So, if your company is struggling with unstable demand, do not immediately blame the market. Ask yourself, is what we promise actually what we provide? Because if your product consistently serves its intended purpose, customers have a reason to return. And returning customers creates some incredible value. So instead of asking, how can we make customers spend more, ask, what does the customer want this product or service to do for them? Then build around that answer. The money follows value. Customers are always willing to pay for something that works. They are willing to pay for convenience. They are willing to pay for a problem to disappear. That is sustainable value. Now, before you leave, I want you to think about one product or a service you buy repeatedly. It would be a pen, a phone, a piece of equipment, anything. Ask yourself, why do I keep buying it? Is it because of the advertising? Is it because of the packaging? Or is it simply because it works? Now turn that question towards your own business. Why should your customer keep buying from you? Not because you persuaded them, not because you gave them a discount, not because you followed the latest trend, but because you consistently deliver something they genuinely need. That is the difference between selling a product and building a brand. And that is the difference between following a trend and building legacy. If you found this variable, subscribe to Africa Value Chain. Here we explore supply chain management, logistics, sustainability, innovation, and industry strategy through an African perspective. And I want you to leave a comment. What is one product or service you continue buying because it simply works, and why do you remain loyal to it? Because sometimes the products we remain loyal to can teach businesses more about what a customer actually wants than any other marketing presentation. The one who understands the problem better has a chance to execute it better and consistently deliver the value that customers expect. And I also believe collaboration and partnership are essential to building sustainable solutions. One person cannot change the world alone, but one person can lay the foundation. And that is why I invite you today to build with me. This is what Africa Value Chain is all about. It's not about simply talking about what Africa would become. It's about understanding the system, decisions, and opportunities that can help us build it in reality. This is Africa Value Chain. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.